and welcome. I am Amarachi Ubani. Tonight, after long hours of siege, soldiers arrest leader of the Islamic movement of Nigeria, Sheikh El-Zakzaky. Governor Ayodele Fayose accuses the ruling party of an attempt to upturn his victory using military reports on the Ekiti governorship election. Police arrest 18-year-old boy whose antics has allegedly resulted in the sack of 6 police officers, one of them nearing retirement. And the Russia-Turkey feud takes worrisome turn as Russia fires warning shots at a Turkish boat in the Aegean Sea. We begin tonight with this report on the arrest of the leader of the Islamic movement of Nigeria, Sheikh El-Zakzaky, by soldiers at his residence in Zaria. One of his followers confirmed his arrest to our correspondent. The Nigerian army and members of the sect have accused each other of instigating attacks that led to the death of members of the movement. While the army accuses the sect members of infringing on the rights of other road users, the Islamic movement alleges that soldiers opened fire on innocent people during a peaceful procession. Earlier today, at least 12 people were confirmed dead after soldiers stormed the Zaria residence of the leader of the Islamic movement of Nigeria in Kaduna State. The State Commissioner of Police, Umar Shehu, told our correspondent that the situation is under control and that more policemen have been deployed to Zaria to maintain law and order. The commandant of the National Defense College, Rear Admiral Samuel Alade, has asked retired military officers to proffer solutions to current security challenges in the country. Mr. Alade made the call at the 2015 27th regular course meeting with retired and serving officers in Abuja. According to him, the retired officers have benefited much from the country, that they cannot stand aloof and watch only their colleagues who are still in service battle the problem of insecurity. Meanwhile, the representative of the retired officers urged the military to be united in order to rid the country of terrorists.
While I continue to pray for the long life and sound health and prosperity for all our members, I dare admonish all of us to continue to assuage the feelings of the families of our deceased colleagues to keep their hopes alive. My distinguished classmates, our country today is facing myriad of security, economic, and social challenges. As great patriots that we are, and of course we have been well trained by this country, permit me to say that it is our responsibility to provide necessary solutions to the challenges facing our countries today.
During the May 2015 swearing-in ceremony, President Muhammadu Buhari made it clear that Boko Haram has no space to operate within the nation's territory. He goes further to give a December deadline when he thinks the military would have dealt a decisive blow on the insurgents. It's 13 days into December and the fight against Boko Haram is still on. Joining me now on the News at 10 to take a look at the situation and how achievable the December deadline is, a retired Air Force officer, Group Captain Hannah Cho. You're welcome to the News at 10.
Thank you very much indeed.
Well, going back to the president's inaugural speech, he did give assurances that Boko Haram will be defeated with a December deadline to crush all the insurgents, retake all the territories. Do you see the war lasting beyond December?
Well, I think I had an opportunity to be your guest sometime in the past, and we did talk about this. I would like you to understand that Mr. President is looking at the big picture, and we are looking at it from a macro micro perspective, where he sees the micro aspect of the entirety of the whole thing, which I am not privileged to have. However, I want us to understand that we are talking about, when we talk about terrorism, I like to use this term and to describe the problem that we are having. So far, we've been allowing the media to define the nature of the problem by telling us about insurgency.
So
yes,
what is the problem?
The problem is that we are having a terrorist challenge, basically. Yes, they do also use some instruments of insurgency by, shall I say, borrowing from ISIS. When ISIS began to declare caliphate, Boko Haram now told us we have linked with ISIS and we're also declaring caliphate and we are occupying territories, hosting flags in Nigeria. That is actually insurgency. By definition, insurgents seek to subvert a state from within.
Which is what Boko Haram is
And
doing.
they can use instruments of terror, guerrilla warfare, etc., to achieve their objective. And for them to do that, they must have the support of the local population where they occupy because they want to have territory. Now, Boko Haram does not have restrictions on the use of terror as a weapon, which actually is why it's a terrorist organization. It has been right from day one. Now, migrating to pattern itself after some insurgency organization doesn't actually make it an insurgent organization. They are a terrorist organization. They're using some tools of insurgency.
Okay, so now that we have defined and clearly defined insurgency and terrorism, and we have understood from your definition that we are fighting insurgents, how are we doing with the war?
We are fighting terrorists.
We're
That's what I
fighting
said,
terrorists,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
but we're fighting an insurgency.
Well, it's like you are cutting a tree without uprooting it. If you say you are fighting insurgency, because you cut the tree, the root is terrorism. So if you want to deal with the whole matter holistically, you need to uproot. Deal with terrorism, there will be no insurgency up there.
So is a December deadline, is it feasible? Is that a practical deadline? Because we're 17 days to the end of December.
I say yes and no. And like I said before, Mr. President has the holistic, has the big picture. See, yes, I am an expert, but I have the small picture. But then, like I said before, insurgency is achievable. You can put a timeline on that. Terrorism, you cannot put a timeline on that because it's an ideological warfare. And you cannot, an ideology is a thing of the mind. And you need to, continue doing that. But insurgency, like I said, they want to subvert a state from within, and they want to occupy territory. You can deny them that occupation within a timeline. Yes, you can do that. But for terrorism, you cannot put a timeline. It's a continuous thing. So it is
obvious, that this war will continue beyond December. What's the nature you would like the military to take, to really defeat this group of insurgents?
All right. That's a good question. I would rather think that I would not place that purely in the domain of the military. Rather, I would place it squarely in the domain of the country, particularly the political class, who have to develop the political will to deal with this terror problem that we do have. Why do I say so? The reason is this. It is, since it's an ideological warfare, or rather what I call an asymmetric threat, we need to, the procedure to deal with this problem is different from a conventional approach which we are applying to deal with insurgency. Insurgency, to deal with insurgents, we need the military in the forefront, and it's purely in the domain of the military. Yes, of course, there are other state apparatus that we need to support the military.
In other words, this is everybody's war.
Yeah, for terrorism, it's everybody's war. It's a multi-agency process, and the military does not necessarily, as a matter of fact, the military comes in at the reactive and responsive state. But at the initial state, we don't even need military action at all. We can deal, the war on terror is, like I said before, a multi-agency process that we need to synergize and coordinate and cooperate with several agencies to deal with it. So we need to have the right architecture to deal with this terrorism problem.
Interesting conversation. Group Captain Hannah Cho, thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
In part two, after the break, Kogi House of Assembly remains divided as 2 members claim speakership. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.